Hey everybody, great to have you back here in the fish tank. We're going to be looking at the Minion Masters PTR that's open right now. We're going to have a look at the upcoming balance changes, also the new card that's going to be added, and two new master perks that are going to be joining Minion Masters in version 2.8, which is going to be in a couple of weeks. It's going to be on September the 24th. Remember, now we're on Tuesday patches as opposed to Thursday patches like we were before. Right, so let's have a look at what is being added. So we have one new card. So remember, in the last patch we had two new cards, which were the big spider and the little spider. Previous to that we had one new card, which was Karmic and the master perks. Now this time we're going back to the one new card and two new master perks. So the first new card is going to be Bearzerker. And we can have a little look at her here. She's not quite finished yet, so there's no artwork. She's not fully posed, but we can see what she's like here. And she's kind of like, if Urclaw and the Highland Huntress had a baby, it could well be the Bearzerker. So, Stout Heart ranged minion, 7 mana. Just like the Highland Huntress, every 8 seconds she gains a vicious strike, so that's going to be an extra, or that's going to be a 200 damage strike. Her stats, her DPS is a little bit lower than the Highland Huntress. Damage is the same, but she attacks slightly slower, so DPS lower. Her health is higher than the Highland Huntress though, so similar DPS but tankier. But also she's, when we talk about Urclaw, she has a similar effect to Urclaw. So at 50% health, she does the Bearzerker Roar, or the Bearzerker Roars, which removes all stun, frozen, and fear from itself, just like Urclaw. And it inflicts fear. So remember, Urclaw was changed recently to now stun instead of fear, which makes sense for Urclaw because he's melee, but she here is a ranged minion, so the fear doesn't really affect her too much. She doesn't have a huge range, only a range of 6. So at 50% health, she removes all of sort of the negative effects from her stun, frozen, fears everything nearby, and she gains haste and resets her vicious strike. So remember, that's on an 8-second cooldown, so regardless of when she previously did it, a new one will be almost immediately ready to go. So kind of interesting, mix between two minions that we've already got. One of the big issues we have with Urclaw is that he does his kind of roar, and the whole roar animation looks awesome, but during that period of time he kind of can get shredded. But now that he stuns, it's not quite as bad as I think as it was before. So we'll see how the Bearzerker stacks up. But one of the thing with ranged minions in the Stout Heart faction is they were very few and far between. Highland Huntress came in, she was very, very strong originally, she got a lot of nerfs along the line. But now they have another option here with the Bearzerker. Right, so that's the one and only new card that's coming into this expansion. But as mentioned, we do have some new alternative master perks. So, the first new master perk is Apeps Perk 2, Papyrus of the Black Obelisk. So every 30 seconds, and just a reminder, this is the alt perk 2, so this replaces the shield totem. Every 30 seconds you get the Black Obelisk book. Did I say book? I don't know where I got book from, but it seems bookish to me. So you get the Black Obelisk. When you play it, it costs 0 mana, and the reason I say book is it kind of works in the same or similar way to Morelia and Milloween's books. So when it opened, it shows you 4 random minions from your opponent's deck, each with 4 effects applied. Now I think there is a fallback if there are not 4 random minions in your opponent's deck. I think it falls back to just Slitherbound, sorry. Okay, so you get 4 random minions from your opponent's deck. The one in slot 1 gets the Essence of Crawling Chaos, which means one of the minions summoned will gain Spirit. And the reason it says one of the minions, because imagine you're spawning Legionnaires, you don't get a Spirit on all of the Legionnaires, you only get it on just one of them. There is also a sacrifice mechanic with that one, where the minions, all of them, will gain rage if you can sacrifice 2 Slitherbound. So that could work with the Slave Driver perk from perk 1, which is an alternate perk itself. In the second slot, the card will get the Born of the Black Wind, which means it just simply costs 1 less mana. In the third slot, Tribute to the Black Pharaoh costs 2 less mana, but the minions summoned will have Taunt and Marked. Taunt can sometimes be good or bad, depending on what it's on. So Taunt means that the enemy minions will be forced to attack it, and Marked means that the ranged minions within range, and it's kind of an interesting definition between Taunt and Marked, because Taunt only has quite a small range, whereas Marked doesn't. I don't think Marked has a range. It just relies on the range of the minions that are attacking it. If a ranged minion, if this is within range of a ranged minion, the ranged minion will attack the marked target. So Taunt has to be pretty close. Marked doesn't have to be. Just it depends on the range of the minions. And Marked, of course, has the increased damage from the ranged minions as well. So basically what's happening is you're getting things for cheap, but they're coming with potential negatives. And in the fourth slot, we have the Torment of the Dweller in Darkness. It costs 3 less mana. Minions are summoned with slow and poison equal to half its max health. So you get it for cheap, but slow, and it has a lot of poison. One thing I'm thinking about looking at this, like what if the thing in your fourth slot is only a 2 mana card? How does that work? I don't know. We'll have to ask that question and see how that. Maybe it prioritizes, maybe it orders them based on their cost. I'm not sure. So that's Apep's perk 2. You basically get a book of random cards from your opponent, random minion cards from your opponent. Doesn't specify that it's not mythic minions, so you may or may not be able to copy those. Again, we can maybe try and get that clarified. And the reason I mention mythic minions is because things like the Simulacrum can't copy mythic minions. So that might be the same, not sure. Okay, so that's the alt perk for Apep. And then we have an alternate master perk for Wrecked. This is a replacement for perk 1. So his current perk 1 is the Shadow Dance, where you jump in, you have the clone, and then every time you jump, it leaves a clone. This is a replacement for that. So instead of getting the clones, you only get Wrecked himself, but it's a better version of himself. He gains haste, so he attacks more quickly, has increased DPS and speed. He also gains a shield with 200 health that regenerates while not being damaged. So basically you're not having all of the bonus clones, but the Wrecked himself is going to be more valuable. And just like with the Shadow Dance, if you're out on the field and the cooldown drops down and you're ready to go with the next gun carder, you can jump and reposition him. But it doesn't leave a clone like the other one was. So that's kind of an interesting alternative to Wrecked. Right, so that's the new stuff. Let's have a look at the changes that are coming with regards to the power of existing cards, buffs, nerfs, rebalances. Right, ATG Drone. This is an interesting one. ATG Drone is actually called the ATG X8. It used to do 8 attacks. That got reduced to 7. Looks like we're going back up to 8. So this is the flying drone that can only hit ground minions. So attack count's going up to 8. Damage is going down a little bit. Attack cooldown is going down a little bit. So that means it attacks faster, which is good. But also, it's having a range reduction from 6 to 4, but it spawns with marksmanship. So that means that its range is 4 plus 2, which equals 6, which is what it was before. So what's the point? This means you can no longer buff it with Stormbringer. So instead of it being range 6 plus another 2 in Stormbringer up to range 8, it's going to be always range 6. So the change with the range is kind of a nerf. The rest of it seems... I mean, the attack count going up to 8. Remember, it will hit random things below it. If there's only one thing, it will hit everything. Damage going down a little bit. So attack, we're doing 70 to 64. I don't know. This seems more like a rebalance than a buff. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be under the buff section, to be honest. It doesn't seem fully buffy. But we'll see. Right, Blade Star duration going down from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. I like this, but it's not going to change too much with the Blade Star. The reduction in duration means that kind of when you miss everything and then it bounces around and then comes back, then this is where you're going to feel the change. Because remember, it carries on until the duration is over or it's done the number of hits, whichever comes first. If you're a good player and you play and you know how to use Blade Star and you get good value out of it, then the duration is going to be kind of irrelevant. It's going to be doing the bounces, getting the damage. So I don't hate this, but it's not going to change like the highs of the Blade Star. Okay, next up, Cheese Day. This is where we're getting a random, I think it's a 3 mana scrap minion card. Previously, instead of it just being random, now you're going to know what you're going to be getting. So you're going to know whether it's going to be your sniper, you're going to know whether it's going to be the bazooka scrap, the Jolo, whatever. And of course that makes it a lot more usable because you can play it straight into where you want it because you know what it's going to be. And instead of it getting rage overall, you do need the Scrat Swarm bonus, which I think is 3 or 5 Scrats in your opponent's arena to trigger that. So the rage is not guaranteed. But the spawn being known, I think, is a huge change. Right, Frostfang Familiar. This is like the Haunting Hugger, but like the good version of it. So this is the one that goes around and buffs your units, gives them Vampiric. Movement speed going up, that's good because it'll be able to get to where it wants to go more quickly, which in this case is good. And its health is going up, so it's going to be a little more tanky. Right, Fanriel. Charge speed down to where it captures a bridge. So there were a few things in the game that were too fast to capture bridges. Remember, you have the 1.5 second bridge timer now before you can neutralize a bridge. Fanriel and the Spire Stag were too fast. So I think their speed is going down from... It's going down by 2, I think. Their charge speed is going down by 2, which means they won't just run over the bridge anymore. So I think their speed, their charge previously was 12. I think it's going down to 8. Going down to 10. And I think that's where we're at. Right, King Puff, getting a range increase from 8 to 10. I mean, I like that as a King Puff player because he's always had a short range, which has been problematic. So he won't be outranged by so many things anymore. Morgrul's Ragers. So these are the guys that if you trigger them, when you spawn them, everything gets raged. And remember, triggering them is the Voidborn wound mechanic, where a Voidborn minion has to damage the opponent's tower. But these guys will always have rage. So on their own, even untriggered, they actually get a little bit more value. Right, Mountain Shaper, charge time going down from 4 seconds to 3.5. That's charge per charge, and you can have up to 10 charges. So overall, that's going to be charging quicker and you get more value out of it. Still don't see many people playing it. Right, Ravager perk 1 overpower. So this is where the minions, and reminder, this is an alternate perk replacing perk 1, which is the standard perk 1 is the Brutus. This is replacing that. So previously you would get an empowered first attack of a minion if they were 5 mana or more. That's going down to 4 mana or more. So a deck building restriction limited, reduced in that situation. The damage now only triggers against minions. So based on that phrasing, it means the extra damage doesn't trigger against buildings or face. And one thing I noticed the other day, if you look closely, if you're playing this perk or against this perk, when the minion has that additional damage ready to go, there's sort of a little wispy effect above its head. Right. Scrapyard. Simulacrum removed from the pool. I don't know why Simulacrum was ever in there. It never made sense. The way Simulacrum worked in the Scrapyard is it would just give you a Marine for 2 mana, which is not good. So Simulacrum removed from that. Screaming Scrat, damage goes up a little bit, kills a little bit more. Spire Stag, damage going up from 30 to 35, and as mentioned before with Fanreal, charge speed going down so it can now capture a bridge, and Zeppelin Bomber getting a little bit more HP. Right, rebalances. So, Ankahesh, this is the big spider, not a spider card that was added in the last patch. Base damage going up from 40 to 60. But the poison duration going down a little bit. So remember, the way that Ankahesh works is he does bonus damage based on, well, she works, I should say, because she has the Mother's Gift ability, so it's probably female. She does bonus damage based on the amount of poison on something. So she'll stack less poison, but do better damage on her own. And there's a lot of changes to the puffs here, and really the big change is that puffs are now playable anywhere, and obviously anywhere is on your side of the field, just like all regular minions. This is how it used to be many years ago, or probably many years ago. Then they changed it so puffs could only spawn, you can only spawn them next to the tower, and then they made some changes based on that restriction. That restriction is being removed, so you can play them anywhere, and there's a few things that are changing because of that. So a lot of the puffs had their first trigger in faster because it took into account the time it got them onto the bridge from spawning at the tower. That doesn't happen anymore, so that fast trigger at first is removed. So Disruptor Puff loses that, Mana Puff loses that. Heal Puff, healing going down from 20 to 15. Shroom Puff no longer has Zenshi Flow. That means you can't get the double shrooms from it. Only get the one shroom. And the Squire Puff, again, not getting the first trigger faster. Tronvir, basic attack. I don't know how I feel about this. The knockback's being removed from his basic attack. And the reason I don't like that is because that was kind of one of the things that made his basic attack stand out from all the other masters. No one else had this knockback. But, I mean, it was kind of annoying to play against. I don't know how often it helped. Because obviously once you've let something come onto face, then you put your stuff down to deal with it, and then Tronvir knocks it off your face, and then there's all the re-aggro. So, I don't know. It was kind of cool, but also maybe more of a negative. Especially when you're waiting for something to come across, get to the master, take the bridge behind it. You have to wait a little bit longer because that unit's going to get knocked back. So, I think probably overall that's better. But it's kind of sad that he loses that part of his sort of identity. And his damage going down from 150 to 100, but a cooldown going down from 6 to 4 seconds. So attacks for less, but more often. And then his alternate mana perk, which is the Runic Attunement, where you can get your specific runes based on what you are spending your mana on. The amount of mana is going down across the board. So 18 mana down from 20 on minions to get, I think it's the Frost one for the minions. Spell mana reduced from 20 to 18. Building mana reduced from 15 to 14. This is kind of one of the worst alternate perks out there, at least prior to this change. It just didn't stack up in value compared to what the basic perk one was. Right, and another nerf to Tronvir. His Runestone is the Windstone damage is going down from 200 to 150. I think that's healthy. At 200, it can kill so many things. For 2 mana, just didn't really seem appropriate. So 150, that means there's quite a lot of things that will now survive against it that previously wouldn't. Things like a Succubus, for example. Right. Nerf. Apep. Apep's base attack damage going down from 30 to 25. Remember, Apep does that double spit if there's more than one target. And the base attack cooldown going up. So Apep's going to be worse at defending their self. Blood pack damage going up from 75% to 85%. So remember, units with the blood pact pass on that damage, including overkill damage, to your master tower. So we're talking about things like Blood Imps, Gorex Gates, and there's something else that has blood pact, the Brutish Betrayer. Right. I like this change to Netherbats, but it also kind of changes how they work. So Netherbats, they can't Nether Step for 2 seconds after having attacked. Their attack speed is less than 2 seconds, so that means that once they're on a target, as long as they stay within range of the target, so it's not running away or something, they will not change the target. that makes it a lot more easy to deal with. So for example, once they're on the master tower, they will never come off of the master tower, which means you can play your snipers in the pocket, for example, and not have them killed. So I think that's a healthy change for the Netherbats. If for some reason there's 2 seconds between attacks, if something moves or whatever, then they can still, but I think that's okay. Right, Wrecked. Base attack cooldown 0.8 to 0.9 seconds, so that's DPS reduction. Wrecked alternate perk 3, Mass Illusion. Number of illusions going down from 10 to 8, and the cooldown going up from 20 to 25 seconds. I would also like to see some bug fixes with regards to this, because there's some units that when you copy them with this illusion, they don't work as you kind of would expect. Right, Ratbo perk 2, Squeak Attack. This is the alt perk. Now only affects scrats spawned by your own card plays. Remember, Squeak Attack means 2 things. Firstly, your scrats that spawn from the tower will be burrowed, so they're underground, they can't be seen. And then when they get into range of something, they'll pop up and attack it and do extra damage. From my meta review video, if you've checked that out, you'll have seen that Ratbo was insanely popular in 2v2, not so much in 1v1. So this kind of is a change that makes sense because it's nerfing it in the 2v2 environment, but not in the solo environment. Right, Valorian, alt perk 2, where you get your Fervent Warrior, cooldown going down from 25, or going up, sorry, from 25 to 28 seconds. Definitely needed, I think. Valorian perk 2, this is the standard perk 2. The Holy Light, cooldown going up from 5 seconds to 6 seconds, so less heals. Volko, perk 1, standard perk 1, which is the Embers on the Bridge to give you rage, cooldown going up to 25 seconds from 20. And another nerf to the War Dancers, attack cooldown going up from 0.9 to 1.1 seconds. So they got kind of spanked in the last patch. And I'm surprised that they're getting spanked again. Right, so that's pretty much all I wanted to go through the upcoming stuff for the PTR. Remember, if you want to get involved yourself, you can do. The PTR is going to be open until the end of Monday, maybe early Tuesday. Today, it's Sunday. If you want to get involved in the PTR, go to the Minion Masters Discord. There'll be a link in the description. Give yourself the tester role. Look at the PTR section on the side. Look for the announcement for the public PTR. It'll tell you exactly how to get involved. Check out what you want to, whether you want to try out some of the balance changes, some of the new perks, so one of the new card, for example, see how that plays. And when you're doing these testing, if you get involved in it, there's a couple of things we're kind of looking for. Firstly, you're checking to see if things work properly. Do they work as you would expect? Do they work as you would, based on the description that you've been given of how they should work? Does everything seem to work? And of course, do they work in conjunction with other things that you would expect? So that's kind of firstly checking that if it works correctly and are there any bugs with it. And then secondly, which is a completely different way of looking at things, is what is the balance of this like? Is it too strong? Is it too weak? Are you unsure? So those are the things that if you get involved in the testing, it's really helpful to check out. And of course, when you follow the instructions in the Discord, there's a link to this document that I'm looking at here. The next page is to give your feedback based on what you think of the changes. And of course, the more feedback the devs can get, the better the job can be done of making sure things are bug-free and as balanced as possible when they come into fruition, when they come into, I think, version 2.8, did we say, on the 24th of September. So that's it. That's everything. If you want to keep up to date with everything Minion Masters related, make sure you hit the subscribe button on my channel here. I'll do my best to keep you up to date. If you enjoyed this video, of course, give it a thumbs up. And let me know in the comments, what do you think of the new things, the balance changes, stuff like that. And don't forget, check me out on Twitch. I've been streaming more lately. And I do have a YouTube VOD channel as well. If you missed any of those Twitch streams, I'll put all the links in the description to everything you need. I've been Bad as a Fish, and I'll see you again soon here in the fish tank.